Now on RTÉ One, internationally acclaimed actor Brendan Gleeson revisits the rural community where he spent his summers as a child to meet the market gardeners of North County Dublin in the last resource.
Eat up your vegetables now if you want to grow up big and strong. How often did you hear that as a kid? And if you couldn't whinge your way out of it, down they went. Didn't do you a bit of harm. The chances are that whatever you had to force down was grown within 10 miles of here. This is Fingal in North County Dublin, land of the Dublin cultures, where local farmers produce 60% of the country's vegetables from some of the best agricultural land in Ireland. But for how much longer?
People would be amazed and I'd say, what do you do? Well, I'm a farmer. Where do you farm? I said, farming swords in Dublin, you know. I said, what do you mean farms in Dublin? People don't understand. From the north side of Dublin, it's such a big acreage and such a big percentage of vegetable farming in like Rush, Lusk, Skerries, some of the best agricultural land, growing vegetable land in all of Ireland.
Market gardening needs access to a big city, and these farmers couldn't be closer to Dublin. There are other advantages here like sandy soil and more hours of sunshine, or so we're told. This industry has experienced dramatic change in the last 2 years. Consumers are insisting on quality, well-presented vegetables, and supermarkets are placing responsibility for meeting those demands firmly at the farm gate. And for what return?
In 1984, we were getting £2.50 for 10 heads of cabbage. Now we're getting something in the region of £2.60 or so. So it hasn't jumped very much, and everything else has gone up in prices, such as sprays, fertilisers, tractors, and labour.
10 years ago there was 1,300 growers. There's 480 now. Most of those casualties were in North County Dublin.
Family farms here are under increasing pressure, and some of them are slowly disappearing. The farmers face a number of choices. They can become more cost efficient, invest, find new product, specialise, or they can allow Dublin's housing crisis and rezoning to solve all their problems and just leave agriculture altogether. Market gardening has sustained Willie Snow's family for generations. No one is better placed to judge the transformation in the business.
Well, it has changed in a very, very big way. First of all, everything has to be spot on now. In my father's time, you could put a load of cabbage on a cart, bring it to Dublin and tip it up on Moore Street, and the women all come down and they took their two shillings worth or £half-crowns worth, and they went home and they fed their families. Now a head of cabbage has to be put into a plastic bag. Turnip has to be washed, carrots has to be washed, everything has to be packed. You get a much better flavour of a carrot or a parsnip or even a potato if it's taken fresh out of the ground and left with the clay on it. But that's not fitting into the supermarket situation here now at the moment because it's not clean enough and it doesn't look well enough. But the old housewife would understand what I'm talking about.
Talking to Willie and his 3 sons, it's clear they're committed to making a good living from farming. The whole idea of the family farm is a very cost-effective model, although it's disappearing in other sectors of agriculture. On this farm, traditions of sharing labour are still crucial. Right, as 3 of you are, along with Willie, are trying to run a fair amount of acreage here. How do you divide up the different tasks? Ronan, what do you look after mostly?
Well, Brendan, I look after the corn end of the enterprise and focus on that. We do help out each other if we have the time. It's got more mechanised, it's got more tight, you have to be more efficient with costs, inputs. You know, it's down to pen and paper now, how much pounds you can save per acre, how much spray exactly you need per acre. With 100 acres of their own, they rent up to 500 more in the year to increase their turnover.
Because land is so valuable in Dublin, the farm has to be efficient. Mark, you look after the machinery and stuff, is that right?
Yeah, I just maintain the machinery here, servicing tractors and that, and once we're busy then we'll do the ploughing and so forth, you know. If the lads are busy then just muck in with them and give them a dig out, you know.
Yeah, I live in a housing estate down Swords. Bit of a change for me growing up on a farm. Like, moved out here when I was 22, 23, moved down to Housing River Valley and never lived in a housing estate in my life. There is a big difference in it. If you're on a bit of peace and tranquility out here, you can just go out the back and head up the fields and away with you. People that have never lived somewhere like this won't understand. When people say, God, you missed a bit of peace and a bit of quiet and your own bit of freedom. It's a bit of a change in the housing estate, yeah. I'm mainly on the vegetable side of things. Like, we do a few crops here. We do celery, broccoli, cabbage and turnips. We start in the beginning of June right through till end November, December, with celery with the last, and cabbage nearly all year round.
We have Dublin Airport here beside us, and there's good jobs there for fellas to take it up. And it wasn't in my lads' interest, or probably in their blood, to do that. If they had went financially, if a Friday evening, they'd be an awful lot better off. Because if they worked the same hours in Dublin Airport or any of the noise factories that's around here at the moment, they'd be coming out with a lot bigger pay packet than they are coming out here.
Yeah.
But I think they're happy at what they're doing, and they're just putting up with that.
Talking to Willie and that, he's obviously very proud of the way he's all work from 5 in the morning till kind of last light at night during the summer and all the rest of it. Do you find the grind of all that and then the lack of return ever pushes you towards getting out of farming?
No, because we're happy in our work, you know.
Yeah.
It's what we were brought up to, it's what we know, and I don't think I'd be happy doing anything else.
You're living in a housing estate, you're working on a farm. Would you consider yourself part of the rural community or the urban community, or both?
Well, I have a bit of both, I suppose, but I'd class myself in the rural community. Like, you know, that's...
Dublin culture.
Dublin culture, yeah, that's a good way of putting it, yeah.
For such a small area, the range and concentration of intensive horticultural activity is impressive. Teagasc has played its part, and in more recent times, help from on board Glash has preserved the region as a centre of excellence. Growers did all this without any financial interventions from Brussels. However, they've also faced problems. The oil crisis in the 70s had a terrible impact on the industry when growers couldn't heat their glass houses. Despite setbacks, growers have learned to adapt and react to market forces. This is not a community afraid of change.
I think it is a good thing because it's making us aware of things that we didn't realise that was happening out there. Like, you just grew the crop and you sent it to the market and that was it. But now you have to take notice of not alone growing the crop, but you have to take notice that you're also producing this for other people, for the housewife, and that it has to be right for her. So your premises must be right. To grow a crop now, an acre of tomatoes, I have an acre and a half, but to grow an acre of tomatoes, it costs over £100,000 to produce. To pay wages, to buy the plants in, to pay for boxes, and it doesn't leave much. I'd like to get to a situation where we would build a new acre glass, but it's at the cost of a new acre glass is £320,000.
Right, so it's a big investment.
It's a big investment. So what I'm hoping is the son will take over and do that. I'm at a stage now that's getting on in years, so it's up to the son now to, if he wants new glass, let him do it.
The fruit market here behind Smithfield in Dublin was traditionally the centre of Ireland's wholesale fruit and veg business. Farmers would come here every morning at 5 o'clock and auction their produce. These days, while this is still going on, really the whole system of buying and selling vegetables has changed completely. Today, the supermarket is in control. To increase efficiencies and profitability, retailers deal directly with the grower. The consumer is more demanding and discerning. You only have to go into a supermarket to see that what's on the shelf displays a major change in Irish lifestyles.
People travel more now and they get new tastes and they say, I want to taste something different. I'm tired of the old tastes I used to have. The other change that clearly identified is health. Health has jumped way up in the priorities of most people when they're interested in what they buy. So they're fussy about what they buy because they're interested in health. And the third thing that I can think of is the whole interest in organic food, even if it wasn't to do with health. The major change, however, is the fact that now both partners in the house are probably working. So they want to be able to spend much less time preparing meals than they used to. 20 years ago, we thought you sold things in little packets. And one day at a customer panel, I remember it well in Ballantyre, and I said, and how are we for fruit and vegetables? And they said, oh no, you see, we like to go to the small individual fruit and veg one, because we can pick them up in our hand and look at them and say, I'll take that or I won't take that. So we immediately took things out of our packets and discovered our sales jumped. With one exception, people got fussier. They would buy the perfect carrot, but they wouldn't buy the carrot that had a little twist in it, or they didn't buy anything that was slightly off perfect. Now we had to go to our growers and say, we only want the best of your crop. We'll pay you for the full kilo, but just send us the half kilo that's perfect.
From field to supermarket shelf, the farmer is responsible. While you don't have to pay any more for your cauliflower, the farmer has to grow the crop, harvest it, put it into barcoded bags, pack it, and make sure it's delivered to the supermarket's warehouses. The supermarket chains have introduced an elaborate distribution system. CDCs, or Central Distribution Centres, were pioneered in this country by Musgraves in 1997. Based on a UK model, all produce is brought to one of these centres and then distributed to retail outlets nationwide. While this system increases efficiencies in terms of supply and traceability, it does put extra pressure on the grower. Multiples in this country control 70% of the vegetable trade. So for most growers, the supermarket chains are their only market. Farmers are concerned about these issues. At this IFA meeting in Rush, growers discuss the power and dominance of the multiples. They acknowledge that while the markets are controlled, at least they're guaranteed a market and a price.
Now, grower or grower representatives can sit down at a table and they have an input in the pricing structure. So it can, okay, it's not, let's be honest about it, it's not the share of the cake that we would like, but it's going in a positive way. Now, from my own point of view, if I'm going out to cut 1,000 cauliflowers next week, I know what I'm going to get for them. 2 years ago, I didn't. I couldn't get anything.
Farmers have had to become good economists, but not just out of a romantic notion about farming or wanting to stay in the land. This is business, and with a clear understanding of their market, they're committed to survival.
What we're going to have to compete on at the end of the day is a cost per kilo base, or a cost per unit base.
I suppose I'm the 7th generation of Jones at it in this area. And it's a thing that's very strong in my heart. And
I suppose the reality of politics or lobbying in this country, it is a numbers game. And while horticulture is very important in North County Dublin, as it is for mushroom production in Cavan Monaghan, Wexford, nursery stock production in Kildare and so on, pockets around the country where it is extremely important, it still only represents approximately 5% of the total agricultural output. Even though it is 2.5 times more labour intensive, it is very important, but it is still small within the overall scheme of things. You've got to look at reducing your production costs as much as possible. You have got to be a specialised grower. You've got to look at economies of scale. You've got to look at having the right piece of equipment for the right job, whether it's a harvesting machine for sprouts, you're looking at £66,000 or whatever. Obviously, you cannot afford to make those type of investments for different pieces of equipment for different crops.
Specialising seems to be the key for the future, and John Battersby is one such grower. In fact, he's one of the major players in the Brussels sprout business in the country. The acreage he works has increased by 300%. 85 acres of Brussels sprouts.
Traditionally, we were always hand picking, but this year, because of the acreage, we're machine harvesting. So from the time the sprouts are not actually touched by hand now at all, just when they've been fed through the machine. But we've more or less guaranteed market. Up until now, we were growing on spec. We had no one there to program us what we grew, but now we can program ourselves. We can watch our costs, and it's actually more a business than farming at this stage.
We have a middle size then, and we have the larger size, and they're packed and sold in 3 different sizes.
Okay. Or would they be younger or would they be all the same?
Was that wrong? Was that...
With the twist of a handle, we can grade any requirement of size sprout. Some multiples have maybe just sell 1 or 2 different sizes sprouts, others sell 3 or 4, so we just have to grade daily what the requirements in supermarkets are.
And how much did that set you back?
6 figures.
Produce today has to be washed, graded, packed and barcoded ready for the shelf. This calls for extra investment in equipment and labour. All of this cost must be borne by the farmer. Meanwhile, prices haven't increased in 15 years. In 1986, sprouts wholesaled for 70 pence a kilo. This year they're going for 72p. Farmers are fighting back. Dublin Meath Growers is one of an increasing number of producer groups. They're a co-op and ensure that even the smaller grower can get a slice of the action.
Same one, yeah?
The supermarkets don't have to deal with individual growers, and the growers have one voice when it comes to the price talks table. The producer group is also a highly efficient way of tracing produce, and that chain of information is impressive. Computer records give precise details, such as when the crop was sown, sprayed, harvested, the entire history of the plant.
It will have full traceability to it, which gives the consumer confidence that he can, at any one time, know exactly everything that happened in the growing of the crop. Through a computerized system, we have all that data here in advance of taking the produce in. And our consumers nowadays are very conscious of artificial fertilizers, chemicals, etc. We can give a guarantee here that every product that comes through here has traceability right back, not alone to the grower, but to the field and to a plot within the field.
Growers can be proud of that traceability. There's no doubt that food safety is an important issue for consumers, and commercial growers recognise it's in their interests to address those concerns. Organic farming is still in its infancy here, and while it may be poles apart from the scale of commercial horticulture, organic practices are starting to impact on commercial producers. The growers of North Dublin are now facing a major labour crisis. With industry shouldering agricultural land, farmers can't compete with factory wages. And if rural Dublin has a labour crisis, urban Dublin has a housing crisis. One solution is to build more houses outside the city. Will it be a choice between cabbages or mortgages? Fingal County Council, the authority in charge of this region, has published its draft development plan. Over 2,000 acres of agricultural land has been rezoned for housing, and even more for industry. If the plan goes ahead, it would mean one of the biggest land changes in Dublin for over 25 years. This is Dublin's vegetable patch. Obviously, Dublin is growing and people do need to live somewhere. But how it grows is a different question. I remember growing up in RTÉ, which at that time was on the edge of the city, and to see how the surrounding countryside was engulfed in a sea of concrete and brown envelopes, just willy-nilly, well, it was less than inspiring. To consign the rest of the North County, with its rich soil and tradition, to a similar fate seems to me to betray at best a ferocious lack of vision. It's like pouring concrete over the best garden in the country. It doesn't make sense, but that seems to be the plan. Once these fields are built upon, there's no bringing them back. So your plan is to gravitate towards the urban centres that are there already?
Our plan is to gravitate towards the urban centres, and particularly to develop Blanchardstown, Swords and Balbriggan as our 3 major centres, and also to develop the villages throughout the county, as well as the area around Dublin Airport. That is to concentrate and focus development so as to minimise, if you like, the impact on our agricultural resource base.
As well as protecting the agricultural resource, how do you intend to nurture it?
Well, just to say that we are aware that horticulture in Fingal, that it is a national centre for horticulture, and in general terms we need to protect that. We have a number of proposals there. First of all, around our major urban areas we have green belts, and the intent of these is to restrict the development of the urban areas out into the countryside.
What have we got, Cameron? No. No, yeah.
The greatest concentration of market gardening is in Rush, Lusk and Skerries. There are 150 farms in Rush alone, and there 91 acres could be lost to housing. And that's just the plan for the next 10 years. What happens after that?
Will there be very strictly enforced areas then, whereby beyond those areas no rezoning will happen?
Well, rezoning is a function of the council. Of the councillors, the elected members, but what I can say is that what they have proposed and what they have agreed to put on public display is a very clear statement of where development will happen, and that the proposal which they have adopted was this strategic approach to locate development in very particular areas, so as on the one hand to obviously optimise the advantage of development, and on the other hand to protect our rural agricultural and amenity resources in the countryside, of which we're very conscious of.
Whether this commitment to protect the resource is honoured, only time will tell. If growers can't control the spreading city, at least they've taken control of their industry. Specialising and adding value can only leave them in a position of strength. However, they are dealing with a limited market, and retailers' demands are something that should continue to be monitored. These farmers have been exposed to market realities. Unlike other sectors in agriculture, the growers of North Dublin have not been sheltered by protectionist policies and price supports. With the current shift in EU thinking, maybe in the long run, they're much better off. If as a sector they have stood alone, I wondered whether as a community they have stood together. And would you say there is a farming community around here?
There's a farming community out here, all right, yeah. Like, it's very few, it's much fewer in number, like. There's only a handful of us left in the one boat now, producing vegetables, and we're more in touch with each other. They're more commercial farms now. They have to be viable, and it's like any other business. Like, if a man buys a machine, it has to pay in his outfit. If you stayed doing what you were 5 years ago, you'd be gone now. Everybody's changing. Everybody that's left in it is changing.
Nobody's looking for the sun, moon and stars here. We're looking to keep its tradition going. If you come into this town 10 years ago, with all the money in the world, you wouldn't buy any ground. It's a different story now.
I had a builder in with me here 6 months ago and offered me $500,000 for this place here if I wanted to sell, but I feel that I'd like to stay in the business. It's easy money to get out and sell, but I prefer to be in the business.
Yeah.
I like hard work.
You like hard? I think they have it very hard. It's a lifestyle industry. You know, I don't think a lot of people get into horticulture or stay in horticulture for the money, but long term into the future, the money has got to be there if we want, and the consumer wants Irish produce. And in years to come, if we don't all make the effort now to ensure that we've got that supply in the future, the consumer in the years to come will ask, well, whatever happened? You know, why weren't they given the support? As you said, like we've got the land, we've got the resources. If that's not supported by the retailers, by the consumer, ultimately we're gone.
You need to be sharp now, like, just to stay in business, you know, and you just have to be with it every day. And like the way it is, like for the future around here, like we have some of the best land, some of the best growers, and we can produce the best quality around here, as good as anyone. So why not have us supplying it, like, you know?
Yeah, I like farming, and it's in my blood, and my sons came that way as well, and I'm sure it's in their blood as well, probably to keep on, as I say, mullicking and banging away.
I'm not a farmer. With all the problems they face, I can only admire the way they stick at it. They're a determined crowd. Maybe it's a comfort to know that they can sell their land and become financially secure, but it's not what they want to do. They're very proud of the fact that they produce the food that people eat. They want to keep doing this, and they want to make it work. For my part, I think it's the city that will be the big loser if it tramples over this resource. Suppose that line about the old sow that eats its farrow.